all kinds of things, the border, maybe extending the tax cuts. In the meantime, your colleagues over on the Senate side, Lindsey Graham, among them, says it's time to get moving. He's released his own framework. He says this on X: "I have tremendous respect for Speaker Johnson. I hope the House will move forward soon, but we cannot allow this moment to pass, and we cannot let President Trump's America First agenda stall." One of the things he cites is Border Czar Tom Homan and the operations that are going on. He says you're going to run out of money for what's going on at the border, so he's not going to wait for the House. He's moving ahead.
Yes, Lindsey's a good friend. I have great respect for him as well, and I understand what they're engaging in. They want to move the agenda, and so do we. The President Trump got a mandate to deliver that America First agenda. He's working at breakneck pace, as you just saw in the opening of the show, to do that with the executive branch, and we're going to do it with legislation. So it's a very complicated and complex set of things that we are delivering. Of course, we're going to secure the border. We're going to make sure that American communities are safe. We're going to get American energy dominance going again in the economy and restore common sense. But to do all that in one big bill takes a little bit of time. So we're working through that process very productively. We've been building on this for a year, Shannon. All through last year, we had our committees of jurisdiction working on the ideas to put it together. Last month, we did that in earnest in January. And as recently as this past week, we spent 4.5 hours at the White House on Thursday and 3 hours later that evening working through the final details, and we're very, very close. So I appreciate the Senate's zeal. We have it in the House as well. But as I reminded my friend Lindsey, I have about 170 additional personalities to deal with, and he's only got 53 on the Republican side there. We have, a very diverse caucus with lots of interests, but we are going to get this job done.
So you mentioned the big meeting you had at the White House last week. This weekend at Mar-a-Lago, the Senate GOP team has been with the president. They've got his ear this weekend. You'll have it again, maybe in the box tonight. How do you make the closing message that what you're planning is a better road forward than the Senate?
Well, I talk with the president and his team about this almost constantly, reminding them that we will get the job done, but it has to be the one big bill strategy. And the reason for that is because that gives us the highest probability of success of delivering on all these campaign promises. We will get it done. The president knows that. He invited me to come with him on Air Force One to the game, but I said, Mr. President, I got to go home to North Louisiana and pick up the family first, and I'll meet you at the game. We'll be in the suite. We'll talk about that. He's getting a lot of wise counsel, a lot of advice. But at the end of the day, the House has to drive this process, and we will. We're going to get everybody together.
Okay, when will we see your framework? Monday, Tuesday?
Well, we were going to do a budget committee markup next week. We might push it a little bit further because the details really matter. Remember that I have the smallest margin in history, about a 2-vote margin currently. So I've got to make sure everyone agrees before we bring the project forward. That final product, and we've got a few more boxes to check, but we're getting very, very close.
So we know one of the president's priorities, and yours as well, is to extend those tax cuts that were passed in 2017. Here's what Axios says: extending those for 10 years could cost $4.6 trillion under the current law scoring used by the Congressional Budget Office. So what is more likely? You find enough offsets in spending somewhere to get that number down, or this talk now that maybe those cuts only are extended 5 years?
Well, we're looking for the offsets, and we have to do that. We have to be good financial stewards, because the other concern is that we are growing the national debt. We don't want to add to the deficit by doing this. So it is a very expensive project. And remember, we've got to spend money to secure the border because the Biden administration opened it wide. We've got to make sure defense spending is covered, and then no tax on tips and these other big priorities that the people elected the president to do. So making all that work in the proper equation is where the math and the hard work comes in. But we're going to make sure that we find the offsets to do this in a responsible manner.
So in the meantime, House Democrats say it looks like you're going it alone. They think this is going to be a party line vote, or at least if you can keep your caucus together, and that you're not actually spending any time negotiating with them. Here's the House Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Republicans haven't said a single thing to House Democrats about finding common ground to get something done on the budget, on their tax cuts for the wealthy, well-off, and well-connected, on their efforts to dramatically end Medicaid as we know it, or on the debt ceiling.
So is it worthwhile to get some bipartisan effort? You've done that on some big things that you have gotten across the finish line, but he says you're not even talking.
Well, listen, Hakeem is a good colleague, but that hyperbole there is not helpful. I mean, we're not dramatically cutting Medicaid, and we're not doing all these things they accuse the Republicans of. We're trying to get the country back on track and restore America's greatness. And it takes some real effort to do it. There will be things that we're doing in a bipartisan fashion, but the reconciliation process, which we're spending all the time on right now, is by design effectively a partisan exercise. They've done it when they had unified government, and we're doing it this way. So There's plenty of time for all the negotiation, and we'll get to that. And, the Democrats, frankly, are flailing right now. They don't have an identified party leader. They don't have a real vision for the party. And the blitz of all the Trump executive actions have them just at a dizzying pace. And so they're flailing right now. I get it. This is politics, but we're going to get the job done.
So there is a lot to get done in the coming weeks. And part of that is the fact that we're supposed to run out of government funding on March 14th if something doesn't get done. Here is what Congressman Chip Roy, he's a Republican, says about what may happen on that front.
CRs aren't my favorite vehicle, but the idea that we're going to get approaches done by March 14th is, that's pretty low.
So he is thinking the odds aren't good for getting those appropriations done. Continuing resolution, the CR, that Band-Aid, what are the possibilities that that's part of what you have to do to keep things going?
Well, look, all options are on the table right now, but our appropriators have been working in earnest to get that top line number negotiated with the Democrat colleagues, and there's been lots of posturing back and forth, but I think we can get this job done. The appropriators can write the bills quickly enough because a lot of the groundwork, the foundational work, has already been completed. So just getting everyone to agree to what that final spending number is going to be has been the holdup. But we have time. It's early February, and the deadline is March 14th. So there's more to come on that.
So most of what we've seen in the administration so far has been executive action out of the executive branch. So as you work on the legislative branch, let's talk about that, because many of the president's earliest actions are already tied up in court battles. There are some injunctions there. Erwin Chemerinsky, who's the dean of Berkeley Law School, says this: a stunning number of his executive actions clearly violate the Constitution and federal law. I certainly doubt that any president has done so much lawless so quickly that affects so many people. Now, ideologically, politically, clearly you're in sync with President Trump, but I've known you for years as a constitutional attorney. Are you worried at all? Anything you would voice as concerns, separation of powers, what's going on in the executive branch?
Look, I'm a lifelong advocate and guardian of Article 1. There's a reason that the legislative branch is listed first in the Constitution. The founders intended for us to be the ones that, drive the agenda. But the executive branch, the president has a very important role. The dean is not wrong. President Trump has done more than any president in our memory, probably in the modern era, maybe in the whole history of the country, right out of the gates. Why? Because he knows exactly what he wants to do, what he needs to do, and what the American people gave him a mandate to do. So I'm not uncomfortable with the pace of this. He's fulfilling all of our campaign promises.
What about the substance of it?
Well, the substance is what the American people demand and deserve. This idea, all the controversy about Elon Musk helping us out, they're going through to find efficiencies. There has been massive fraud, waste, and abuse of the American taxpayers' dollars, and this is the best way to do it. You bring in effectively an outside auditor, and that's what Elon and the team are doing. And what they are uncovering is incredible abuses of the public fisc. And so we applaud that. We're supporting it, and we're going to back it up with legislative action to make sure we codify these changes.